It's biology with Mr. B. Biology with Mr. B. That's me! Alright, not done that for a while. So this is for year 12s. I'm asking you to do a few tasks in the independent study lesson that you're doing in the 2 weeks that I'm off. And this is me going through the tasks. And dear God, if I get back after Easter and there are people who have not done and marked these tasks, so I'm talking beautiful green, blue pen everywhere, I will hunt you down, drag you into a period 6 that you don't want to be in, and make you do it. Not a nice period 6 where I help you. A period space, think of it as a detention, because that's how I'll feel. So, let's go in, find the tasks. We're going to start right here. So the first one was task number 6. All to do with alveoli related things. I really like the last question at the end, the 3 marker, but let's go. I've got a black pen. That might not be the best colour, but I'll see what I can do. If it doesn't look good, I'll change it. So you asked first to name structure X. Structure X is pointing to like the entire thing, isn't it? So structure X is clearly just the alveoli. That's legible. I'm going to try blue for the next one. Name the process by which gases cross the gas exchange surface. If you have just put diffusion, that is fine, but it is simple diffusion. CO2 and oxygen are non-polar, which means they are able to just diffuse straight across that phospholipid bilayer. They don't need like a protein channel, they don't need to facilitate diffusion, and it certainly is passive. So no additional energy for metabolism needed. A and B show the directions taken by the gases. Name the gases A and B. Well, A is going into the blood, so A must be oxygen. And B is going out of the blood into the alveoli, so that must be carbon dioxide. They're fine. So structure X in the figure is very, very delicate. Structure X, obviously being alveoli. The surface tension of the water film shown in the diagram would cause the alveoli to collapse if it weren't for a substance in the film that lowers surface tension. I'm recording, hello. You can be on the recording, it's fine. That's Miss Will. Oh wow, this is on YouTube. I know. Hi. So, the substance is secreted in the fetal lungs late in pregnancy, and that is why we would talk about in lesson that we would have to use cows to get that substance surfactant, because that's the substance it's talking about. The substance of the film is called surfactant, but it's only secreted in the fetal lungs late in pregnancy, so premature babies do not have surfactant, and therefore sometimes display breathing difficulties, respiratory distress syndrome. Without treatment, premature babies may become exhausted, suggests the cause of this condition and suggests why premature babies may become exhausted. So this question doesn't require us to know about surfactant. I can tell you that because it's old spec, and in the old spec we didn't need surfactant. We should now know that this is surfactant. I would be disappointed if you haven't in your answer talked about this substance being surfactant, because we should know it. So surfactant should be there somewhere. But the rest of the question is linking this idea of exhaustion to babies that have breathing difficulties. And why, if you've got breathing difficulties, you may become exhausted. So your actual idea is going, if you've got breathing difficulties, there's going to be less oxygen diffusing into blood per breath. So respiring cells receive less oxygen. So respiring cell, I can't spell respiring. Respiring cells receive less oxygen. Respire less. So respire less. So that's less ATP produced. And therefore less metabolic activity, less muscle contractions, less chemical reactions, less synthesis. Yeah, that'll make you feel pretty exhausted. Task 7. Just make that a bit clearer. So task 7, we are just looking at the feature and how that lung is adapted to the gas exchange surface. Large surface area, how it helps. So millions of alveoli, how it helps is a large surface area, and that's to increase the rate of diffusion. What you're doing is providing more membrane for gases to diffuse across. So per second, with more membrane, more alveoli, there's more gases that can diffuse. There's more space for it. Very thin, short diffusion distance is the idea that alveoli wall is 1 cell thick. You can expand that by saying that 1 cell is also squamous epithelial cell, which is an incredibly thin layer. Capillaries close to the alveoli is also that idea of short diffusion distance. The fact it's close. But the idea of the capillaries, this is the blood supply, is there to maintain a steep concentration gradient of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Steep concentration gradient of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The one at the bottom, that's your water film with surfactant. Surfactant reduces the surface tension, so it means the moisture won't stick the alveoli together, there won't be hydrogen bonds between adjacent alveoli bits of water, and it allows them to expand and prevents them from collapsing in on themselves, which is helpful. Okay. We then move across to task 8. Identifying certain features as cell, tissue, organ, and an explanation. So the explanation is going to be the same regardless of whether it's tissue, organ, or cell, really. So ciliated epithelium, because there's multiple of them, it makes it a tissue. So it's the same type of specialised cell, but there's lots of them, all performing the same, all with the same structure and providing the same function. And therefore that makes them a tissue, because they are a group of specialised cells performing a similar function. Trachea is made of multiple tissues, and therefore has to be an organ. So is the bronchi. Multiple tissues working together. Goblet cell, the clue's in the name, it is a single cell. It is not multiple cells working together, it is a single cell providing that one function, making mucus. Squamous epithelium, like ciliated, is a tissue because it's multiple. To have the function, you can need multiple of them. And the erythrocyte, there may be lots and lots, but to perform its function, you just need the single cell. Okay. Apparently ciliated cells have more mitochondria than most human cells, while goblet cells contain a lot of ER and Golgi. Explain, so we have to use science, how these features relate to the functions of each types of cells. I'm just going to use my whiteboard for this because it requires a bit more writing. So ciliated epithelial cells versus goblet. So these guys had more mitochondria. These guys had more Golgi and RER. So your science here is that ciliated epithelial cells need ATP to waft mucus in the trachea and bronchi. ATP from respiration, and obviously mitochondria are the site of aerobic respiration. So that's why we have that link there. Mitochondria site of aerobic respiration. The goblet cells, and again I am deliberately going fast because you have the ability to pause me. The goblet and rewind me. Goblet cells. There is more Golgi and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now my brain instantly is thinking, well, that's protein synthesis, isn't it? What are goblets making? Mucus. What is mucus? Mucus is water with proteins inside. So goblet cells make mucus, which is full of protein. It's the protein that makes it sticky. So RER is where protein is synthesized. Specifically, it's where translation takes place. Golgi is a definition, receives, modifies, and packages protein into vesicles, and those vesicles are then sent around the cell, potentially to be secreted by exocytosis, or they might be used within the cell. In this case, those proteins would be involved in making mucus, so those proteins would end up in vesicles, going to the cell surface membrane to do exocytosis, and all, as with all the others, so mucus is secreted into the lining of the lumen of the trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. Okay, go back here. Okay. How many cell surface membranes does an oxygen molecule pass through as it moves from the airspace inside the alveoli into a red blood cell? The answer is 5. Most people say 3. Your reasoning, if you think of your alveoli like this, well, the outside of that alveoli is squamous epithelial cells. So simply for the oxygen to get out the alveoli, it's 1 and 2. It's got to go across both cell surface membranes of those cells. The capillary is also made of a layer of cells as its wall. They're called endothelial cells. So to get into the capillary, it's got to go through 3 and 4. And then the erythrocyte is the final membrane it has to get across, which will be number 5. Explain how oxygen molecules move through one of these membranes. It is simple diffusion. So it's passive, easy peasy. And where does surfactant come from? Surfactant is part of that water film. And it's produced late on in the fetus when you are pregnant. Task 9 we should have done, because that's ventilation. So the final task I've asked is task number 10, which is mostly a tick cross sort of thing. So a lot of these that you're not expected to know this, obviously. Everything that's been filled in already is things you're not expected to know. The rest is things that we should be able to work out. So there is always 1 trachea and there's always 2 bronchi. I love the fact eventually it splits into 48,000 terminal bronchioles and 300,000 respiratory bronchioles. They're the ones going to the alveoli. So in terms of epithelium, so rather than just ticking or crossing, we can probably clarify. I'm going to do it as either ciliated epithelial or squamous, because they're my options. Trachea, bronchi, the bronchioles. Certainly those 3 are all ciliated. The respiratory bronchioles, the ones right at the end, might not be. But they're more likely to be ciliated than squamous, because diffusion is still not happening here in a bronchiole. They're more likely to actually be an intermediate, so they probably don't have the cilia, but they're not quite squamous, it'll be somewhere in the middle. The alveolar duct and the alveoli, that's the first time you're going to get squamous. In terms of cartilage, again, I'm going to differentiate slightly rather than just ticking. I'm going to say C-shape for trachea. Bronchi, I'm going to say less than trachea. Terminal bronchioles, I'm going to say less than the bronchi. And the respiratory bronchioles, we're going to say no. Cartilage won't be in those final bronchioles, and it's definitely not there in the alveoli. Goblet cells, yep, you're going to get them in trachea, bronchiole, probably the terminal bronchioles. You're probably not going to get them in the respiratory bronchioles, probably too small, and you definitely not get them in the alveoli. Smooth muscle again, yep. I'm going to go down the route of less than trachea and then less than bronchi. You will get a tiny amount in those final bronchioles, certainly less than the ones above. You're not going to get it in the alveoli. Similar pattern for cilia really. And site of gas exchange, absolutely not. Tiny bit maybe in the alveolar duct, but you really want it all down here in the alveoli because that's where the blood vessels are collected. So, thank you for doing that bit of work for that one lesson out of the 4 that we've not been able to cover with the biology member of staff. Good luck with your lessons with Miss Willerton. She is doing a hard topic. Be very, very nice to her or I hurt you. Not like physically or emotionally, just I will be very disappointed. And I'll do those disappointing stares that teachers can do. Let's see if I can practice one. You ready? You ready? I'll just be like, I'm disappointed. Anyway, bye.